Welcome to the Eat This Book podcast. I'm Michael Whitworth. Each day we take a small piece of scripture and we sit with it. Not a quick snack that disappears before lunch, not a chore you check off of a list, but rather a meal meant to be savored. So pull up a chair. Let's eat. Jacob is running for his life. Behind him lies everything. The blind father he deceived, the brother who swore to kill him, the mother who orchestrated the scheme and now sends him away for his own safety. Rebekah told him to stay with her brother a few days, until Esau's anger subsides. She's wrong. It won't be a few days, it will be 20 years, and she will die before he returns. Jacob doesn't know any of this yet. All he knows is that he has to leave, and leave now. So he walks. 500 miles of wilderness stretching before him. No servants, no caravan, no company, just a man alone with his thoughts and his guilt and the long road to Haran. The blessing is still his. That's the strange thing. He lied, he cheated, he exploited his father's blindness and his brother's hunger, and he got what he wanted. The birthright, the blessing, the covenant promises that flow from Abraham through Isaac to him. But what good is a blessing when you're sleeping in the dirt? What good is a promise when your brother wants you dead? Jacob has grabbed everything and lost everything. The hill grabber's hands are full, but his life is empty. Night falls somewhere between Beersheba and Haran, and Jacob stops because he has no choice. The sun is set. He can't walk in darkness, so he finds a place. The text just calls it a certain place. Nothing special, nowhere significant, just a random spot where exhaustion and nightfall intersect. He takes a stone and puts it under his head, a stone for a pillow. This is not comfort. This is a man who left home so fast he didn't pack provisions. This is rock bottom in the most literal sense. The future patriarch of Israel, sleeping on rocks, alone in the wilderness, a fugitive from the consequences of his own scheming. And then he dreams. A structure rises from the earth, a stairway, a ladder, a ramp. The Hebrew word appears only here in the entire Old Testament, so we can't be entirely sure what it looked like. But we know what it did. It connected the ground where Jacob lay to the heaven where God dwells. Earth and heaven joined, the gap between human and divine bridged. Angels move on this stairway, ascending and descending. Notice the order. They go up first, then come down, which means they were already here. They start on earth, rise to heaven, and then return. The traffic flows both ways. Heaven isn't far away and disconnected. Heaven is near, and there's a ladder. At the top of the stairway stands the Lord himself, Yahweh, the God of Abraham and Isaac. And he speaks, not to a prophet or a priest, not to a man who deserves it, but to a deceiver, using a rock for a pillow. God introduces himself through a relationship, through a lineage. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. He claims Jacob by claiming Jacob's family. This isn't a stranger appearing in the night. This is the God who has been with this family for generations, now extending that presence to the third generation, even though the third generation is a liar and a thief. Then come the promises, and they are staggering. The land you're lying on, it's yours. Your offspring will be like dust, countless, spreading in every direction. Through you and your descendants, all the families of the earth will be blessed. These are Abraham's promises, word for word, the same covenant language that launched this whole story back in Genesis 12. God is transferring the blessing to Jacob, the same blessing Jacob stole from Esau, now given freely by God himself. Which raises a question. If God was going to give Jacob the blessing anyway, why did Jacob need to steal it? Why the goatskins and the lies and the shattered family? He didn't need to. That's the tragedy. God's purposes would have been accomplished without Jacob's scheming. But Jacob couldn't wait. Jacob couldn't trust. Jacob had to grab. And now he's alone in the wilderness, receiving freely what he tried to take by force. But God isn't finished. The promises get personal. I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised. 4 commitments: presence, protection, restoration, faithfulness. Jacob is running away, and God promises to bring him home. Jacob is utterly alone, and God promises to be with him. Jacob has made a complete mess of his life, and God promises not to leave until he's finished what he started. This is grace. Scandalous, unearned, undeserved grace. Jacob hasn't repented. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't even acknowledged that what he did was wrong. And God shows up anyway. Not with judgment, but with promises. Not with condemnation, but with covenant. Jacob wakes up terrified. He realizes the Lord was in this place and he didn't know it. This is the confession of everyone who has ever encountered God unexpectedly. Jacob wasn't seeking a religious experience. He wasn't on a pilgrimage to a sacred site. He was just trying to survive the night, and God was there, had been there all along, and Jacob didn't know it. We think we know where God is. Temples, churches, sacred spaces, and he is in those places, but he's also in the wilderness, on the run, at the random spot where we collapse in exhaustion. The Lord is in this place, we just don't always know it. This is the house of God, Jacob says, the gate of heaven. The Hebrew word for awesome here, Norah, means terrifying, dread-inducing, the kind of awe that makes your knees weak and your hands shake. Jacob isn't comfortable. He's not having a warm spiritual moment. He's trembling because he realizes he's been sleeping at the doorway between worlds. The gate of heaven was right here, and he had no idea. He could have been consumed. He could have been destroyed. Instead, he was blessed. In the morning, Jacob takes the stone he slept on and sets it upright as a pillar. He pours oil on it, and he consecrates this random spot into sacred space. The place was called Luz before, just Luz. Nobody special. But Jacob renames it Bethel. Bethel, the house of God. The place didn't change. Jacob's awareness changed. And once you encounter God somewhere, that somewhere is never ordinary again. Every patch of ground is potential Bethel. Every certain place could become the gate of heaven. We just don't know it until our eyes are opened. Then Jacob makes a vow, and it sounds like negotiation. If God will be with me and keep me and give me bread and clothing and bring me back safely, then the Lord will be my God, and I'll give him 1/10 of everything. Is this faith or bargaining? Is Jacob worshiping or hedging his bets? Scholars have debated this for centuries. Maybe he's still the schemer, trying to cut a deal with the Almighty, or maybe this is what early faith looks like. Tentative, conditional, testing whether God really means what he says. Either way, it's a start. Jacob isn't where he needs to be yet. He won't be Israel until he wrestles at Peniel, decades from now. But something has shifted. The deceiver is becoming, slowly, a worshiper. The hill grabber is learning, imperfectly, to open his hands. Here's what lingers from this passage. Number one, God meets us in unexpected places. Jacob wasn't looking for God, he was looking for a place to sleep. But the stairway appeared anyway. The Lord spoke anyway. Grace doesn't wait for us to seek it. Grace ambushes us in the wilderness. Number two, God's promises don't depend on our worthiness. Jacob was a liar, a cheat, and a man who broke his father's heart and his brother's spirit. And God gave him the covenant anyway. Not because Jacob was good, but because God is faithful. The promise made to Abraham continues through the most unlikely carriers. Number three, heaven and earth are connected. That's what the stairway reveals. Angels ascending and descending. Traffic between realms. The gap between human and divine isn't infinite. There's a ladder. And Jesus will one day claim to be that ladder himself, telling Nathanael, "You will see heaven opened, and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Jesus is the ultimate Bethel. In him, heaven and earth meet. Jacob left that place different than he arrived. Still flawed, still the schemer, still carrying the weight of what he had done. But he'd seen the stairway. He'd heard the promises. He had discovered that the Lord was in this place. He didn't know it before, but now he knew. And that knowing would carry him through 20 years of exile, through Laban's deceptions and Leah's sorrows and Rachel's death and all the wrestling still to come. He had seen the gate of heaven. He had received grace he didn't deserve. He was still Jacob, but Bethel had begun to change him. If you're on the run right now, fleeing from consequences, escaping a mess of your own making, alone in the dark with a stone for a pillow, this passage says God might meet you tonight. Not because you've earned it, not because you've sought it, but because he's gracious. If you think you're in an ordinary place, nothing special, nowhere significant, just surviving another day, this passage says, look again. The Lord might be here. This might be Bethel. You just don't know it yet. And if you're wondering whether your past disqualifies you from God's presence, whether you've schemed and grabbed and lied your way out of reach, this passage says no. Jacob was all of those things, and the stairway appeared anyway. Grace finds you on the run. Grace meets you in the dark. Grace turns Luz into Bethel. A certain place, a stone pillow, a stairway reaching to heaven. Promises spoken over a fugitive. And in the morning, a man who didn't know where God was discovered that God had been there all along. The Lord is in this place. He always was. Next time on Eat This Book, Jacob arrives in Haran and stops at a well, just like Abraham's servant once did. A shepherdess appears, the stone gets rolled away, and suddenly the fugitive starts to cry. Join me in Genesis 29 as another Genesis love story begins at a well. Thanks for reading with me. Until next time, may the Word dwell in you richly.